The coffee was still warm when Zara delivered the news that would change everything. I love only you, but I need to leave with him. It's important to me. I sat at our kitchen table, watching my wife of 8 years pack her designer luggage with the same methodical precision she used for everything else. Zara Vossin had always been deliberate, calculated. Even betrayal, it seemed, required proper organization. Him being Kellan Drake, I assume? I kept my voice steady, almost conversational. No point in theatrics when the script was already written. She paused, a silk blouse halfway into her suitcase. Rhett, please don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder than it needs to be. As if there was an appropriate difficulty level for watching your wife abandon you for her ex-boyfriend. I took another sip of coffee and studied her face, the same face that had smiled at me across this table thousands of mornings, now avoiding my gaze like I was a stranger asking for directions. How long? I asked. How long what? How long have you been planning this romantic getaway with Kellan? Her hands trembled slightly as she folded a sweater. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Zara? She finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before in those green eyes. Genuine fear. Not of me, but of what she was doing. Good. She should be afraid. I need space to think. About us. About what I want. And you need Kellan's input for this soul-searching expedition? Don't be cruel. Cruel. The word hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. I almost laughed. Cruel was watching your spouse pack for a trip you weren't invited to. Cruel was the careful way she avoided mentioning where they were going or when she might return. Cruel was the assumption that I'd sit here like a faithful dog, waiting for her to decide my fate. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I nodded and finished my coffee. When do you leave? This afternoon. The flight is at 3. Flight? Interesting. Not a drive upstate or a weekend at some local resort. This was serious travel, the kind that required planning and reservations and, most importantly, money. My phone buzzed. Work calling. Probably wondering why I wasn't at the construction site yet. I run Vossin Marine Construction, a company I built from nothing after leaving the Marines 12 years ago. We specialize in dock work and waterfront projects along the New England coast. It's honest work, profitable work, and it's kept us comfortable in our suburban home with its manicured lawn and 2-car garage. I should get going, I said, standing up. Tommy's probably wondering where I am. Zara looked surprised. That's it? You're just leaving? You seem to have everything under control here. I kissed her forehead, a habit so ingrained I did it without thinking. She smelled like the expensive perfume I'd bought her for Christmas, the one she claimed to love but rarely wore. Apparently, Kellan Drake warranted the good stuff. Rhett, have a safe trip, I said, and walked out. The drive to the office gave me 20 minutes to think, which was exactly 20 minutes too long. My mind raced through possibilities, explanations, scenarios where this all made sense. Maybe Kellan was in trouble and needed help. Maybe Zara was lying about the nature of their trip. Maybe I was overreacting to what could be an innocent situation between old friends. But deep down, in the part of my brain that had kept me alive during 2 tours overseas, I knew better. This wasn't innocent. This was betrayal, pure and simple, wrapped in careful words and delivered with morning coffee. Tommy Greco was waiting in the office trailer when I arrived, his weathered face creased with concern. Boss, you look like someone stole your lunch money. Something like that. I poured myself another coffee from the ancient machine that had been gurgling in the corner since I started the company. What's on the schedule today? Henderson project needs the final inspection, and we've got that new client coming by at 2 to discuss the marina expansion. I nodded, trying to focus on normal things. Work, deadlines, the familiar rhythm of business. But my mind kept drifting back to Zara's suitcase, her nervous hands, the way she'd said Kellan's name like it tasted sweet. Tommy, you ever been married? 3 times, he said with a grin. Why? How'd you know when it was over? His expression grew serious. When she stopped lying to me? That seems backwards. Think about it, boss. When someone loves you, they lie to protect your feelings. When they stop caring, they stop bothering with the lies. Truth becomes a weapon. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I considered this as I reviewed the Henderson project files. Zara had been lying to me. I was certain of that much. But were they protective lies or weaponized ones? The distinction mattered, though I wasn't sure why. The morning passed in a blur of phone calls, paperwork, and site visits. Normal work, normal problems, normal solutions. It felt surreal, conducting business while my personal life imploded 20 miles away. But the routine helped, gave me something to focus on besides the growing certainty that my marriage was ending. At noon, I drove home for lunch, something I rarely did, but today felt like a day for breaking patterns. The house was empty. Zara's car was gone from the driveway. Her keys were missing from the hook by the door. The suitcase was gone, along with several items from our bedroom, jewelry, her laptop, the framed photo of her parents that always sat on her nightstand. But it was the silence that hit me hardest. The house felt hollow, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. Even the air seemed different, thinner somehow. I made myself a sandwich and ate it standing at the kitchen counter, looking out at our backyard. We'd talked about putting in a pool last summer, maybe hosting barbecues for the neighbors, normal married couple dreams that now seemed as distant as childhood fantasies. That's when I noticed Zara's laptop charger plugged into the wall outlet, the one she'd forgotten in her careful packing. Without really thinking about it, I unplugged it and wound up the cord. She might need it wherever she was going. Upstairs, I found more evidence of her hasty departure. Drawers left partially open, hangers scattered on the closet floor, a trail of small decisions made quickly under pressure. She'd been more nervous than she'd let on. In our home office, her desk was suspiciously clean. Too clean. Zara was organized, but she wasn't neat. Her workspace usually looked like a paper hurricane had passed through. Now it was pristine, wiped down, emptied of anything personal or important. I sat in her chair and opened the desk drawers. Empty. All of them. Even the usual collection of pens, paper clips, and random receipts was gone. That level of cleaning took time and planning. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. It was an evacuation. My phone rang. Zara's number. "Did you forget something?" I answered. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine. Are you at the airport?" A pause. "Yes. Rhett, I know this is hard, but have a good trip, Zara." I hung up and sat in the empty office, surrounded by the ghosts of our shared life. 8 years of marriage, 3 years of dating before that, countless plans and dreams and ordinary Tuesday nights watching television together, all of it reduced to an empty desk and a phone call from the airport. But something nagged at me, some detail that didn't fit the narrative she'd constructed. I pulled out my own laptop and logged into our joint bank account, something I rarely did, since Zara handled most of our finances. The screen loaded and my stomach dropped. The account was empty, not low, not reduced, completely empty. $47,000 gone. Transferred out yesterday evening while I was at the Henderson site, dealing with a problem that had conveniently required my attention until well after dark. I stared at the screen, reading the transaction details. Electronic transfer to an account I didn't recognize, authorized with Zara's login credentials. The timestamp showed 8:47 p.m., about an hour after I'd called to tell her I'd be late. $47,000. Our emergency fund, vacation savings, the money we'd been setting aside for the pool, for a new truck, for the 1,000 small dreams that married couples accumulate. Gone with a few keystrokes and a phone call to make sure I wouldn't be home to notice. I closed the laptop and sat back in the chair, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. This wasn't a temporary separation or a confused woman seeking space to think. This was theft, pure and simple. Premeditated, calculated theft. Zara hadn't just left me for her ex-boyfriend. She'd robbed me on her way out the door. The coffee I'd drunk that morning suddenly tasted bitter in my memory. Her nervous hands, her refusal to meet my eyes, the way she'd cleaned out her desk like she was never coming back. It all made perfect sense now. She'd been saying goodbye to a life she'd already abandoned. I picked up my phone and called Tommy. "Boss, everything okay?" "Cancel the afternoon appointments. I need you to meet me at the house." "What's wrong?" "My wife just stole our life savings and left the country with her ex-boyfriend." Silence on the other end. Then, "I'll be right there." While I waited for Tommy, I did something I'd never done in 8 years of marriage. I searched through Zara's remaining belongings like a detective gathering evidence. Because that's what I was now, wasn't it? The victim of a crime, collecting proof of my own betrayal. In the bathroom, I found a receipt tucked behind her jewelry box. Airline tickets purchased 3 weeks ago. 2 seats to Miami, connecting to somewhere called Nassau, the Bahamas. A romantic tropical getaway, paid for with our joint credit card, the one I rarely checked because I trusted my wife to manage our finances responsibly. 3 weeks. She'd been planning this for 3 weeks, sitting across from me at dinner, lying beside me in bed, kissing me goodbye each morning while secretly preparing to rob me and disappear. Tommy arrived 20 minutes later, his truck rumbling into our driveway like a mechanical cavalry charge. He found me in the kitchen, surrounded by evidence of Zara's deception, bank statements, receipts, printed emails I'd found in her deleted folder. "How bad is it?" he asked. "Bad. She took everything liquid and left me with the mortgage, the business loan payments, and about $300 in checking." Tommy whistled low. "That's not leaving, boss. That's looting." "I know. What are you going to do?" I looked at the pile of papers spread across our kitchen table, the documentation of my wife's betrayal, organized and categorized like evidence for a trial. 8 years of marriage reduced to a fraud case. "I'm going to get it back," I said. "All of it." Tommy raised an eyebrow. "How?" "I don't know yet, but Zara made one critical mistake." "What's that?" "She assumed I'd just take this lying down." I stood up and gathered the papers into a neat stack. "She's about to learn that some people fight back." If she thought that taking my money was game over, she clearly never met the real me. The next morning brought clarity along with the coffee. While Zara was probably sipping tropical drinks and congratulating herself on a clean getaway, I was discovering just how thoroughly she'd planned to destroy me. The credit cards were maxed out. Not just high, completely maxed, right up to their limits. Cash advances, luxury purchases, hotel reservations extending weeks into the future. She'd been systematically draining our resources for months, so gradually that I hadn't noticed the slow bleed. But Zara had made a crucial error in her calculations. She'd assumed I was just another trusting husband who didn't pay attention to the details. What she'd forgotten was that I'd spent 4 years in the Marines, learning to plan operations and anticipate enemy tactics. She'd declared war on me, and I intended to win. My first call was to our bank. "Mr. Vossin, I'm sorry to hear about the unauthorized transfers. Unfortunately, since your wife had legitimate access to the account, she stole $47,000. Technically, sir, it was a legal withdrawal from a joint account. Unless you can prove fraud or coercion." I hung up and tried the credit card companies. Same story. Zara was an authorized user, the purchases appeared legitimate, and there was no evidence of identity theft. The system was designed to protect banks, not betrayed husbands. But I'd anticipated this. During my sleepless night, I'd remembered something important. Something Zara had forgotten in her rush to liquidate our assets. 3 years ago, when we'd incorporated the construction business, our lawyer had recommended protecting our personal assets by placing them in a family trust. Zara had thought it was unnecessary paperwork, but I'd insisted. The house, our investment accounts, even the title to her precious BMW, everything significant was owned by the Vossin family trust, not by us personally. And the trust had very specific rules about asset transfers. Rules that required both trustees to sign off on any major transactions. Rules that Zara had just violated by emptying accounts that belonged to the trust, not to her personally. My second call was to our lawyer. "David, it's Rhett Vossin. I need you to freeze all trust assets immediately." "Rhett, what's wrong?" "My wife just stole our savings and fled the country. I need to lock down everything she didn't already take." Silence. Then, "I'll need documentation." "I have bank records, receipts, airline tickets. She's in the Bahamas with her ex-boyfriend, spending money that legally belongs to the trust. Give me 2 hours." While David worked his legal magic, I drove to Zara's real estate office. She worked for Prestige Properties, a high-end firm that catered to the old money crowd along the coast. Image was everything in that business, and scandal was poison. Margaret Walsh, Zara's boss, greeted me with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Rhett, what a nice surprise. Zara's not in today. She mentioned a family emergency." "That's why I'm here," I said, settling into the chair across from her desk. "I wanted to let you know that Zara won't be back for a while." Margaret's smile faltered. "Oh, is everything all right?" "She's in the Bahamas with her ex-boyfriend, took our life savings, and left me with the bills." I kept my tone conversational, like I was discussing the weather. "I thought you should know, in case any of your clients ask questions." The color drained from Margaret's face. "I'm sure there's some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. Here are the bank records." I placed a folder on her desk. "Feel free to verify the details. I just wanted to be transparent about the situation, since Zara represents your company's reputation." I left Margaret staring at the folder and drove to my next stop, the Anchorage, the upscale bar where Zara and her social circle gathered for their weekly networking sessions. It was early afternoon, but the lunch crowd was still there, including several faces I recognized from various dinner parties and charity events. The bartender, a guy named Mike, who'd always been friendly, waved me over. "Hey, Rhett, haven't seen you in a while. Where's Zara?" "Vacation," I said, ordering a beer. "She's in the Bahamas with Kellan Drake. You remember Kellan, right? her ex-boyfriend from college? Mike's expression shifted from friendly to confused to uncomfortable in about 3 seconds. Oh, I didn't know they were... I thought you two were... Married? We are, technically. I took a sip of beer and looked around the bar. Though I'm not sure how long that'll last, considering she cleaned out our bank accounts before she left. The conversation at nearby tables had quieted. People were listening without appearing to listen, a skill perfected in small social circles where gossip was currency. That's... wow. I'm sorry, man. Thanks. I just wanted people to know the truth, in case anyone asks where she is. You know how rumors start in a place like this. I finished my beer and left a generous tip. By the time I walked out, I could hear the whispered conversations starting behind me. In a town like ours, news traveled faster than wildfire, and scandal traveled faster than news. My phone rang as I reached my truck. David, the lawyer. It's done, he said. All trust assets are frozen pending resolution of the theft claim. She can't touch the house, the investment accounts, or any of the vehicles. What about the money she already took? Though that's trickier. We'll need to file criminal charges for theft and civil charges for breach of fiduciary duty. It'll take time, but we can make her life very complicated. Good. What else can we do? Well, if she's using stolen money to fund this trip, we might be able to get the authorities involved. International theft is a federal matter. I smiled for the first time in 24 hours. Do it. That evening, I was reviewing construction contracts when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Margot, Zara's cousin. We need to talk. Margot Chen was Zara's closest relative, a sharp-tongued woman in her early 30s who worked in marketing for a tech company in Boston. She'd never liked me much, and the feeling was mutual, but apparently family loyalty had its limits. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Margot looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with her purse and avoiding eye contact. I didn't know, she said without preamble. About the money, I mean. She told me you two were getting divorced and she needed a place to stay for a few days. She lied to you too? She's been lying to everyone. Her story keeps changing. Margot finally looked at me. She called me this morning, crying, saying you'd frozen her out of everything and she was stranded. She stole $47,000, Margot. She's not stranded. She's a thief. Margot winced. I know. I figured it out when she asked me to wire her money. When I said no, she got angry. Really angry. Started saying things about you, about the marriage, things that didn't make sense. What kind of things? She claimed you were controlling, that you monitored her spending, that you threatened her. Margot shook her head. But I've seen you two together. You're not like that. And if you were really controlling, how did she manage to steal $50,000 without you noticing? $47,000, but who's counting? This isn't funny, Rhett. She's family. And I was family too, until she decided to rob me and run. I leaned forward. Margot, I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer. Did you know about Kellan? She was quiet for a long moment. I suspected. She'd been different lately. Happier, but also secretive. She stopped complaining about you, which was weird because she always complained about something. How long? I don't know for sure. Maybe 6 months? She started taking weekend trips, said they were work conferences, but she never talked about work stuff when she came back. 6 months. While I was building our business, planning our future, saving for the pool she said she wanted, Zara had been planning my destruction. The betrayal cut deeper than the theft. Anyone could steal money, but it took real malice to look someone in the eye every day while secretly dismantling their life. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because what she did was wrong, and because I think she's going to try to make this your fault somehow. Margot pulled out her phone. She's been posting on social media, making it look like she's on some kind of girls' trip. No mention of Kellan, no mention of you. She's creating a narrative. I looked at the photos, Zara smiling on a beach, holding tropical drinks, looking relaxed and happy. The captions were carefully crafted. Much-needed vacation, and sometimes you have to prioritize self-care. No mention of her travel companion or the source of funding for her self-care expedition. She's planning to come back, Margot continued. In a few weeks, when she thinks you've cooled off. She's going to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just taking some space to think. And the stolen money? She'll say it was her money too, that she had a right to it. Margot put her phone away. She's already practicing the story. I heard her on the phone with Kellan, rehearsing what she'd say to you. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest, the same feeling I'd had in combat when the enemy revealed their position. Zara wasn't just a thief, she was a strategist. She'd planned this entire operation, from the theft to the getaway to the eventual return and reconciliation. But she'd made one critical error. She'd assumed I'd be waiting for her when she decided to come home. "Margot, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Keep listening. Keep track of what she says, where she goes, what she plans. Can you do that?" She hesitated. "Your family too, Rhett. Through marriage, anyway. And what she did, it's not right." "Thank you." I drove home through the familiar streets of our neighborhood, past houses where normal couples were probably having normal evenings. Dinner, television, conversations about ordinary problems. I envied them their simple troubles, their uncomplicated lives. But as I pulled into my driveway, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. For the first time in months, maybe years, I knew exactly where I stood. No more wondering why Zara seemed distant, no more questioning my own instincts, no more trying to fix problems I couldn't identify. The war was declared, the battle lines were drawn, and I finally had a clear enemy to fight. Inside the house, I poured myself a drink and sat in my home office, surrounded by the evidence of Zara's betrayal. Bank statements, receipts, legal documents, the paper trail of a marriage's destruction, but also the tools of my revenge. I opened my laptop and began to work, methodically documenting every transaction, every lie, every piece of evidence that would prove what Zara had done. If she wanted to play games, I'd play games. If she wanted to manipulate the narrative, I'd control the story. And when she finally came home, expecting forgiveness and reconciliation, she'd find something else entirely. She'd find a man who'd learned to fight back. 2 weeks into Zara's tropical vacation, funded by my stolen money, the first crack appeared in her carefully constructed facade. It started with a phone call from Officer Dana Martinez, a detective with the local police who specialized in financial crimes. We'd served together in different units overseas, and she'd helped me navigate the paperwork for filing theft charges. "Rhett, we got a hit on your wife's credit cards." "What kind of hit?" "She tried to book a hotel extension in Nassau, but the card was declined. Apparently she's burned through most of the cash and doesn't understand why her credit isn't working." I'd canceled all the cards the day after she left, but the international processing delay meant some charges had gone through before the freeze took effect. Now she was discovering the limits of stolen money. "There's more," Dana continued. "She called the bank, trying to access the account. When they told her it was frozen pending a fraud investigation, she lost it. Started screaming about her husband stealing her money." "Her money?" "That's what she claimed. Said you were financially abusive and she was entitled to half of everything." Dana's tone was dry. "The bank recorded the call. She doesn't sound like a victim, Rhett. She sounds like someone who got caught." After Dana hung up, I sat in my office trailer at the construction site, watching my crew work on the Henderson project. Normal people doing normal work, solving normal problems. It felt surreal, conducting business while orchestrating the systematic destruction of my wife's life. But Zara had started this war, and I intended to finish it. My phone buzzed with a text from Margot. "She's coming home. Flight lands Thursday afternoon. She's furious." Thursday was 2 days away. 2 days to prepare for the next phase of my campaign. That evening, I drove to the Anchorage for what had become my weekly intelligence gathering session. The bar had become my unofficial headquarters, a place where information flowed as freely as the alcohol. Mike the bartender greeted me with a knowing nod. "The usual?" "Thanks." I settled onto my regular stool and looked around. The after-work crowd was in full swing. Lawyers, real estate agents, small business owners, the kind of people who form the backbone of our community's social structure. "Any word from Zara?" asked Jennifer Walsh, a local insurance agent who'd been friends with my wife. "She's coming home Thursday," I said, taking a sip of my beer. "Should be interesting." "Are you two going to work things out?" "That depends on whether she brings back the $47,000 she stole." Jennifer's eyes widened. The theft had become common knowledge, but people still seemed shocked when I stated it so bluntly. "She says it was her money too," offered Brad Morrison, a lawyer who handled divorces for the local elite. "Brad, you know the law better than that. Joint account doesn't mean you can clean it out and disappear." I kept my tone conversational. "Besides, the money belonged to our family trust. She violated her fiduciary duty as a trustee. You could press criminal charges. Already have. Federal charges, too, since she transported stolen funds across international borders." The conversations around us had quieted. People were listening, filing away details for future gossip sessions. In a community like ours, reputation was everything, and Zara's was crumbling in real time. "What about Kellan?" someone asked. "Is he coming back too?" "I assume so, though he might want to check with his business partners first. Turns out the SEC has some questions about his investment fund." This was a slight exaggeration. The SEC had received an anonymous tip about possible irregularities in Kellan's hedge fund, but investigations took time. Still, the suggestion was enough to plant seeds of doubt. I finished my beer and left, satisfied that the information would spread through the community like water through sand. By morning, everyone would know that Zara was coming home to face criminal charges, and Kellan was under federal investigation. The next day, I received an unexpected visitor at the construction site. Chad Morrison, Brad's younger brother and Kellan's business partner, pulled up in his expensive sports car just as we were finishing the morning safety briefing. Chad was everything I despised about the trust fund crowd. Entitled, arrogant, and convinced that money could solve any problem. He'd never worked a real job in his life, living off family money and questionable business ventures. "Rhett, we need to talk." "About what?" "This situation with Kellan and your wife. It's getting out of hand." I looked around at my crew, who were pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. "Tommy, take the guys to the Henderson site. I'll catch up." Once we were alone, Chad's friendly facade dropped. "You need to back off. The SEC thing, the criminal charges, it's harassment. It's justice. Your friend stole my money and my wife. Actions have consequences. Kellan didn't steal anything. Zara left you voluntarily. With $47,000 that didn't belong to her." Chad stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. It might have worked on someone who hadn't spent 4 years in the Marines, but I'd faced scarier things than an overgrown trust fund baby. "Look, we both know this is about more than money. Your wife was unhappy. Kellan gave her what you couldn't." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Come on, Rhett. You're a construction worker. Kellan's a successful businessman. Zara deserves better than this." He gestured at the construction site with obvious disdain. Something snapped inside me. Not anger. Anger was hot and uncontrolled. This was colder, more focused. This was the moment I stopped playing defense and went on the attack. "Chad, let me explain something to you." I stepped closer, close enough that he had to look up to meet my eyes. "Your friend is a con artist who runs a Ponzi scheme disguised as an investment fund. My wife is a thief who stole money from a family trust. And you're an accessory who's about to learn what happens when you threaten the wrong person." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. See, you think this is about money or status or who deserves what, but you're wrong. This is about consequences. Your friend took something that belonged to me, and now I'm taking everything that belongs to him." Chad tried to maintain his tough guy posture, but I could see uncertainty creeping into his eyes. "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to prove anything. I just have to make enough noise that the right people start asking questions. Like the SEC, like the IRS, like Kellan's other investors who might be interested to know where their money really went." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photograph. Kellan and Zara at a casino in Nassau, playing high-stakes poker with stacks of chips on the table. Margot had sent it to me that morning, along with several others showing my wife and her lover living large on stolen money. "Kellan's been posting these on social media," I said. "Apparently he's proud of his gambling skills. Think his investors will be impressed when they see how he spends their money." Chad's face went pale. "Where did you get these?" "Does it matter? The point is, I have them, along with bank records, hotel receipts, and a very detailed timeline of how my stolen money funded your friend's vacation." I put the phone away. "Now, you came here to threaten me. I'm going to give you a chance to leave before this gets worse for everyone involved. This isn't over." "Well, you're right. It's just getting started." Chad drove off in his sports car, leaving a cloud of dust and the smell of expensive cologne. I watched him go, then called Dana Martinez. "I need to report a threat," I said, "and I think you're going to want to see these photos." Thursday afternoon arrived gray and cold, with the kind of persistent drizzle that made everything look miserable. Perfect weather for a homecoming that nobody wanted. I was at the office when Tommy knocked on my door. "Boss, there's someone here to see you." Zara stood in the doorway of my trailer, looking nothing like the confident woman who'd left 2 weeks ago. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her eyes were red with exhaustion and anger. "We need to talk," she said. "Hello, Zara. How was your vacation?" "Don't." Her voice was sharp, dangerous. "Don't pretend this is normal." "You're right. Normal wives don't steal their husband's life savings and flee the country with their ex-boyfriends. My mistake." She stepped into the trailer and closed the door behind her. "That money was mine too." "No, it wasn't. It belonged to the family trust, which has very specific rules about asset transfers. Rules you violated when you decided to fund your romantic getaway. I'm entitled to half of everything." "After a divorce, maybe, but you didn't file for divorce. You just took the money and left." I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. How's Kellan, by the way? I heard his business is having some regulatory troubles. Her composure cracked slightly. What did you do? Me? Nothing. I just shared some interesting photos with the appropriate authorities. Apparently, the SEC takes a dim view of investment managers who gamble with client funds in foreign casinos. Those photos were private. Nothing's private when it's evidence of a crime. Zara sat down across from my desk, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. Rhett, this doesn't have to be ugly. We can work this out. Work what out? You stole from me. You betrayed me. You tried to destroy my life. I kept my voice calm, professional. The only thing left to work out is how much of what you took you're going to give back. I can't give it back. It's gone. Gone where? Hotels, flights, expenses. Living isn't cheap in the Bahamas. Gambling debts? Her silence was answer enough. So let me understand this, I continued. You stole $47,000, spent it on a vacation with your boyfriend, lost the rest at poker tables, and now you want to come home and pretend it was all a misunderstanding? I want to come home because this is my home too. Not anymore. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Legal documents. The house belongs to the trust, and you've been removed as a trustee due to breach of fiduciary duty. The cars are registered to the trust. The investment accounts, the business assets, even your jewelry, all trust property, all frozen pending resolution of the theft charges. You can't do this. I already did. You declared war on me, Zara. This is what losing looks like. She stood up, her face flushed with anger. I'll fight this. I'll get a lawyer. With what money? Your credit cards are canceled, your bank accounts are frozen, and your boyfriend is about to be arrested for securities fraud. I stood up too, matching her intensity. You have nothing left to fight with. I have the truth. The truth is that you're a thief and a liar who destroyed an 8-year marriage for a few weeks of excitement with a con artist. I moved toward the door. The truth is that you bet everything on the wrong horse, and now you're broke and alone and facing federal charges. Rhett, please, I made a mistake. No, Zara. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill or saying something hurtful in an argument. What you did was calculated, premeditated theft. You spent weeks planning this, weeks lying to my face while you systematically robbed me. I opened the door. You want to come home? Fine. But you'll come home to an empty house with no money, no car, and no husband. You'll come home to face the consequences of what you've done. She walked past me, her shoulders shaking with rage or grief or both. At the door, she turned back. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. I watched her walk across the construction site in her expensive shoes, picking her way carefully around the mud and equipment. She looked small and lost, nothing like the confident woman who'd once commanded every room she entered. But I felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory, just the cold certainty that some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. Tommy appeared at my shoulder. That looked intense. It was necessary. What happens now? I closed the folder of legal documents and put it back in my desk. Now we wait for her to make her next move, and then we finish this. Because Zara was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But she was wrong about who was going to win. The next phase of Zara's destruction began with a phone call I'd been expecting for days. Mr. Vossin, this is Detective Morrison with the Nassau Police. We have your wife and Mr. Drake in custody. I set down my coffee and reached for a pen. What are the charges? Credit card fraud, initially. They tried to extend their hotel stay with cards that had been reported stolen. When we ran their names through the system, we found the federal warrants. Federal warrants. Dana Martinez had been busy. Are they being extradited? Mr. Drake is fighting it, but your wife has agreed to return voluntarily. She should be back in your jurisdiction within 48 hours. After Detective Morrison hung up, I sat in my kitchen, our kitchen, though it felt like mine alone now, and considered my options. Zara was coming home, but not the way she'd planned. She was coming home in handcuffs, facing federal charges for interstate transportation of stolen funds. The smart thing would be to let the legal system handle it from here. Press charges, file for divorce, move on with my life. Clean, simple, final. But Zara hadn't given me a clean, simple ending. She'd humiliated me, stolen from me, tried to destroy everything I'd built. The legal system would punish her crimes, but it wouldn't repair my reputation or restore my standing in the community. For that, I needed something more public. The Harvest Festival was this weekend, the biggest social event of the year, when the entire town gathered in the square for food, music, and the kind of small-town celebration that brought out everyone from teenagers to grandparents. It was exactly the kind of event Zara would have loved, back when she cared about maintaining her social status. Perfect. I called Margaret Walsh at Prestige Properties. Rhett, I heard about the arrest. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Margaret. Actually, that's why I'm calling. I wanted to give you a heads up about something. What kind of something? Zara's been telling people that I was financially abusive, that I controlled all the money and she was forced to take what was rightfully hers. I kept my tone reasonable, concerned. I thought you should know, in case she tries to come back to work and claims she was the victim in all this. That's not what the evidence shows. No, it's not. But she's desperate, and desperate people say desperate things. I just wanted you to be prepared. Margaret assured me that Zara's position at the firm had been terminated, and that any attempt to return would be met with security escort. One more bridge burned, one more avenue of escape closed. My next call was to the festival organizing committee. As a local business owner and longtime resident, I had enough standing to request a booth for Vossin Marine Construction. Nothing unusual about that. Half the businesses in town would be there, promoting their services and connecting with potential customers, but my booth would have a special display. Friday afternoon, Zara arrived home in the back of a police cruiser. I watched from my office window as Dana Martinez walked her to the front door, her hands cuffed behind her back, her head down in shame. The neighbors were watching too. Mrs. Patterson from across the street, the Hendersons from next door, the retirement couple from the corner house who made a hobby of monitoring neighborhood activities. By evening, everyone would know that Zara Vossin had come home under arrest. Dana knocked on my door an hour later. She's been processed and released on her own recognizance. Federal trial is set for next month. What about Kellan? Still fighting extradition, but it's a losing battle. He'll be back within the week. Dana's expression was grim. Rhett, you should know. She's claiming you threatened her, that she took the money because she was afraid of you. Anyone believe that? The prosecutor doesn't. Too much evidence of premeditation, too much proof that this was planned in advance. But she might try to use it as a defense strategy. Let her try. I have documentation of everything. Bank records, hotel receipts, casino photos. The timeline doesn't support her story. After Dana left, I walked through the house that had once been our home. Zara's presence was everywhere. Her books on the shelves, her clothes in the closet, her coffee mug still sitting in the kitchen sink from the morning she'd left. But it all felt like artifacts from someone else's life. Museum pieces from a marriage that no longer existed. I packed everything into boxes and loaded them into my truck. If Zara wanted her belongings, she could pick them up from the storage unit I'd rented across town. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, perfect weather for the Harvest Festival. I arrived at the town square early, before the crowds, and set up my booth with methodical precision. Banner for Vossin Marine Construction, brochures describing our services, business cards, the usual promotional materials, and one special display case, locked and covered with a black cloth. Tommy arrived as I was arranging the final details. Boss, you sure about this? She made it public when she stole from me. She made it public when she humiliated me in front of the entire town. This is just returning the favor. What if she shows up? I'm counting on it. The festival officially opened at 10, and by noon, the square was packed with families, couples, groups of friends enjoying the food vendors and live music. I'd positioned my booth near the main stage, where foot traffic was heaviest and visibility was maximum. People stopped by throughout the day, some genuinely interested in marine construction services, others clearly curious about the man whose wife had been arrested for theft. I was polite, professional, and completely honest about what had happened. Yes, it's been a difficult time, I told Mrs. Henderson. Finding out your spouse has been stealing from you is quite a shock. I heard she claimed you were abusive, said Tom Wilson, a local electrician who'd worked on several of my projects. People say all kinds of things when they're caught, I replied. The evidence speaks for itself. Around 3 o'clock, I saw her. Zara stood at the edge of the crowd, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, trying to blend in. But I'd been married to her for 8 years. I could spot her posture and mannerisms from across a crowded room. She was watching my booth, studying the crowd, probably trying to gauge the level of damage to her reputation. What she couldn't see from her distance was the covered display case, or the small sign that read, "Special Presentation at 4 p.m. At 5 minutes to 4, I stepped up to the microphone that the festival organizers had provided for vendor announcements. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention for just a moment. The crowd quieted, turning toward my booth with the kind of curiosity that small-town events generated. I could see Zara pushing through the people, trying to get closer, probably planning to stop whatever I was about to do. My name is Rhett Vossin, and I own Vossin Marine Construction. Many of you know me, and many of you know my wife, Zara. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew the story by now, but hearing it addressed publicly was different. 2 weeks ago, my wife stole $47,000 from our joint accounts and fled the country with her ex-boyfriend. She was arrested in the Bahamas and returned yesterday to face federal charges. The murmurs grew louder. People were pulling out phones, recording, sharing the moment on social media in real time. Now, Zara has been telling people that she was forced to take this money, that I was controlling and abusive, that she had no choice but to steal from our family trust. I could see her now, pushing through the crowd, her face flushed with anger and panic. She was shouting something, but the microphone drowned out her voice. I thought you all deserved to see the truth. I pulled the black cloth off the display case, revealing a collection of photographs, bank statements, and printed social media posts. Images of Zara and Kellan gambling in Nassau casinos, drinking expensive champagne, posting about their romantic getaway while I was back home discovering the theft. These are photos that Zara and her boyfriend posted on social media during their vacation, the vacation they paid for with money stolen from our family trust. Does this look like the behavior of someone who was afraid for her safety? The crowd pressed closer, reading the documents, studying the photos. I could hear the whispered conversations, the shocked exclamations, the sound of a reputation crumbling in real time. The truth is simple, I continued. My wife is a thief who got caught. Everything else is just a story she's telling to try to escape the consequences of her choices. Zara finally broke through to the front of the crowd, her face twisted with rage. You bastard! You can't do this! I'm not doing anything except telling the truth. These are your photos, your posts, your own words. This is harassment. This is justice. Security guards, off-duty police officers hired by the festival, moved to intercept Zara as she lunged toward the booth. The crowd watched in fascination as she was restrained, still screaming accusations and threats. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, this is what guilt looks like when it's exposed to sunlight. The guards escorted Zara away from the festival, but the damage was done. Hundreds of people had witnessed her meltdown, recorded it, shared it. By evening, the video would be all over social media, spreading far beyond our small town. I packed up the display and thanked the crowd for their attention. People lingered, asking questions, expressing support, sharing their own stories of betrayal and revenge. The general consensus was clear. Zara had gotten what she deserved. Tommy helped me load the booth materials into my truck. Well, boss, I'd say that went better than expected. It's not over yet. She'll try to retaliate somehow. What else can she do? You've got her cornered. I looked across the town square, where families were still enjoying the festival, children were playing games, couples were dancing to the live music. Normal people living normal lives, unmarked by betrayal and theft, and the kind of bitter warfare that destroyed marriages. Desperate people do desperate things, I said, but we'll be ready for whatever comes next. Because this was just the beginning. Zara had declared war on me, and I intended to win it completely, publicly and permanently. The reservation was canceled, but the real show was just getting started. The video went viral overnight. Not internet-famous viral, but small-town viral, shared across Facebook pages, forwarded through email chains, discussed in coffee shops and grocery store checkout lines. Zara's public meltdown at the Harvest Festival became the defining moment of her downfall, the image that would stick in people's minds long after the legal proceedings ended. But I underestimated my wife's capacity for self-destruction. Monday morning brought a knock on my door from Detective Morrison. Not Dana, but a different Morrison, an older man with tired eyes and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much human stupidity. Mr. Vossin, I'm here about the break-in at your construction site. What break-in? Someone vandalized your equipment overnight, cut hydraulic lines, smashed windows, spray-painted threats on your trailer. He consulted his notebook. Security camera caught 2 figures, but the image quality isn't great. You have any idea who might want to damage your business? I had a very good idea. We drove to the site together, and I surveyed the damage. Someone had gone after my equipment with systematic precision, not random vandalism, but targeted sabotage designed to shut down operations and cost maximum money. Hydraulic fluid pooled under the excavator, safety glass sparkled in the morning sun, and my office trailer was decorated with spray-painted messages like liar and abuser. Insurance will cover most of this, Detective Morrison said, but you're looking at weeks of downtime while everything gets repaired? Unless I can prove who did it. You think it was your wife? I think my wife is desperate and angry and not thinking clearly. I took photos of the damage with my phone. But she's not stupid enough to do this herself. You think she hired someone? I think she convinced someone to do it for her. Someone who believes her story about being the victim. Detective Morrison made notes and promised to investigate, but we both knew the chances of proving anything were slim. Whoever had done this had been careful. No fingerprints, no clear images, no obvious evidence. But they'd made one mistake. They'd underestimated how well I knew my wife. I called Margot. She contacted you, didn't she? Silence on the other end. Then, Rhett, I can't... Margot, someone vandalized my construction site last night. Thousands of dollars in damage, weeks of lost work. If Zara put someone up to this, I need to know. She didn't ask me to vandalize anything. But she asked you for something. Another pause. She wanted me to lie for her, to tell people that you were controlling, that you monitored her spending, that she was afraid of you. Margot's voice was strained. I said no, but she got angry. Started talking about how you destroyed her life, how she was going to make you pay. Did she mention anyone else? Anyone who might be willing to help her? Chad Morrison, Kellan's friend. She said he owed Kellan a favor. Chad, the trust fund baby who'd threatened me at the construction site, who'd tried to intimidate me into backing off. It made perfect sense. Zara would have told him some sob story about being victimized, and he would have been eager to play hero. Margot, I need you to do something for me. Can you call Zara and tell her you've changed your mind? That you're willing to help her? Why? Because I need to know what she's planning next. That afternoon, I received a call from my insurance adjuster. The damage was covered, but the deductible was substantial, and the repairs would take 2 weeks minimum. 2 weeks of lost income, delayed projects, disappointed clients. But I had a plan. Tommy and I spent the evening reviewing security footage from neighboring businesses, looking for any additional evidence of the vandalism. We found what we were looking for at a gas station 3 blocks away. Clear images of Chad Morrison's sports car driving toward my construction site at 2 a.m., then returning an hour later. Not proof of vandalism, but proof that he'd been in the area at the right time. I called Detective Morrison and shared the footage. Circumstantial, he admitted, but it's something. We'll bring him in for questioning. What about Zara? Harder to prove she was involved, unless someone admits she put them up to it. Give me 24 hours. The next evening, Margot called with an update. She wants to meet tomorrow night. Says she has a plan to destroy your credibility and make people believe her version of events. Where? The Anchorage. 8 o'clock. Perfect. My old intelligence gathering headquarters, where half the town would witness whatever drama Zara had planned. I arrived at the Anchorage early, positioning myself at a corner table with clear sightlines to the entrance. Mike the bartender nodded in recognition. I'd become something of a regular since Zara's departure, and the staff had gotten used to the occasional drama that surrounded my presence. Zara arrived precisely at 8, dressed in her most conservative outfit and wearing an expression of wounded dignity. She was playing the victim role to perfection, probably hoping to generate sympathy from the bar crowd. She spotted me immediately and walked over with the confidence of someone who believed she held the winning hand. Hello, Rhett. Zara, how's jail treating you? I wasn't in jail, I was released on recognizance. For now. She sat down across from me, and I noticed she was recording our conversation on her phone. Clever. She was probably hoping I'd say something threatening or abusive that she could use in court. I want to make a deal, she said. What kind of deal? Drop the charges, give me half the assets from the trust, and I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. And if I refuse, then I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone the truth about what you really are, a controlling, abusive husband who drove his wife to desperation. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. She believed her own story now, I realized. The lies had become truth in her mind. The narrative had become reality. Well, the truth, I repeated. That's interesting, coming from someone who stole $47,000 and fled the country with her ex-boyfriend. I took what was mine. You took what belonged to the family trust, money that we'd saved together for our future. Our future? Her voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. What future? You never talked to me about anything important. You made all the decisions, controlled all the money. I controlled the money so well that you managed to steal $47,000 without me noticing for weeks. You're twisting everything around. I'm stating facts. You planned this theft for months. You booked flights, made hotel reservations, coordinated with Kellan, all while lying to my face every single day. People were staring now, recognizing us from the festival incident, pulling out phones to record the confrontation. Zara seemed oblivious to the audience, focused entirely on her performance. I was unhappy, she said. I felt trapped, ignored, taken for granted. Kellan made me feel alive again. So you decided to rob me and run away with him. I decided to take control of my own life by stealing from our joint accounts and violating your fiduciary duty as a trustee. Stop using legal words. This isn't about law. It's about how you treated me. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table between us. Zara, I want you to listen to something. I played a recording that Margot had sent me earlier, a voicemail Zara had left for her cousin the night before the vandalism, drunk and angry and completely unguarded. That bastard thinks he's won, but I'm going to destroy him. Chad's going to help me. We're going to wreck his precious business, make him look like the abuser he really is. By the time I'm done with him, no one will believe his lies anymore. The color drained from Zara's face as her own voice filled the bar, admitting to conspiracy, revealing her true motives, destroying the victim narrative she'd spent weeks constructing. Where did you get that? Does it matter? The point is, everyone can hear what you really think, what you really planned. I looked around at the crowd of people recording our conversation. This is who you are, Zara. Not a victim, not someone driven to desperation, just a thief and a liar who got caught. She lunged across the table, trying to grab my phone, but I was ready for her. I stood up, backing away, letting her rage play out in front of the cameras. You set me up, she screamed. You manipulated me. I gave you enough rope to hang yourself. You did the rest. Security moved in, the same guards who'd escorted her out of the festival. But this time they were gentler, more professional. The show was over. The audience had seen enough. As they led her toward the exit, Zara turned back one last time. This isn't over, Rhett. I'll find a way to make you pay. No, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is over. You just don't know it yet. The next morning, Detective Morrison called with an update. Chad Morrison confessed to the vandalism, claims your wife convinced him you were abusive, that she was afraid for her safety. His tone was dry. The recording you provided undermines that story pretty effectively. What about charges? Chad's looking at criminal mischief, conspiracy, probably some federal charges related to the original theft case. Your wife's looking at additional charges for conspiracy and solicitation. When's the trial? Next month. But I don't think it's going to trial. He was right. 2 weeks later, Zara's lawyer called to discuss a plea bargain. She would plead guilty to theft and conspiracy charges, agree to pay restitution from any future earnings, and accept a suspended sentence with probation. In exchange, I would agree not to pursue additional civil charges. I accepted the deal. Not because I felt sorry for her, but because it was over. The money was gone, spent on hotels and gambling and the kind of lifestyle that $47,000 couldn't sustain for long. The reputation was destroyed, the marriage was finished, Zara had bet everything on the wrong horse, and now she was broke, alone, and facing years of probation and restitution payments. The final hearing was held on a gray December morning in a courthouse that smelled like old wood and broken dreams. Zara sat at the defendant's table in a cheap suit, her expensive clothes sold to pay legal fees, her confident demeanor replaced by the hollow look of someone who'd lost everything. The judge was efficient and unsympathetic. Mrs. Vossin, you've pleaded guilty to theft of funds from a family trust and conspiracy to commit vandalism. Do you understand the terms of this agreement? Yes, Your Honor. You will pay restitution in the amount of $47,000, plus interest and court costs. You will serve 3 years probation. You will perform 200 hours of community service. Do you accept these terms? Yes, Your Honor. Then this court accepts your plea. You are hereby sentenced according to the terms of the agreement. It was over in less than 10 minutes. 8 years of marriage, reduced to a brief legal proceeding and a stack of paperwork. I walked out of the courthouse into the cold December air, feeling lighter than I had in months. Behind me, Zara was probably meeting with her probation officer, beginning the long process of rebuilding a life she'd destroyed with her own choices. That evening, I sat in the Anchorage with Tommy and Dana Martinez, celebrating the end of a war I'd never wanted to fight. What's next, boss? Tommy asked. Back to work. We've got the Henderson project to finish and 3 new contracts starting in the spring. What about Zara? I took a sip of my beer and looked around the bar. The same place where this whole drama had played out, where reputations were made and destroyed over drinks and conversation. Zara made her choice, I said. She wanted a fresh start with someone else's money. She got it, right back at zero, with a criminal record and a destroyed reputation. Think she learned anything? I think she learned that some people fight back. Dana raised her glass. To fighting back. To winning, I corrected. We drank to victory, to justice, to the satisfaction of seeing consequences catch up with choices. Outside, snow was beginning to fall, covering the town in clean white silence. The reservation was canceled, the trip was over, and Zara's happy ending had become my new beginning. I finished my drink and walked home through the quiet streets, past houses where normal couples were probably having normal evenings, dinner, television, conversations about ordinary problems. I envied them their simple troubles, their uncomplicated lives. But I'd learned something valuable in the wreckage of my marriage. Some people never learn to fight back, and some do, right before the door slams shut forever.